You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back with a special edition of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. So this is a special edition episode, and one that I was not planning to record initially because these are very unprecedented times. It's a lot. It's a lot. And as you can see with the title of this special edition episode, we're talking about a individual who recently was gunned down. As of the recording of this podcast episode, the shooter is still on the loose. As reported, as of the time of this podcast, they had apprehended one alleged gun person. That person got released. Now they have reached another individual, and that person was released. And we're talking about the fatal shooting and now the death of Charlie Kirk, who has been described by many people as a right-wing youth activist and close ally of Donald Trump. But also, prior to this in the press, was known as a white nationalist, a white supremacist, a transphobe, a homophobe, a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, and Islamophobe, and a lot of other things that led people to really find him problematic. But as of the recording of this podcast, the governor of Pennsylvania and many other Democrats and politicians across the country are giving this individual who has been killed lots of thoughts and prayers. There is now an order from the Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania in my Commonwealth, is ordering that the U.S. Commonwealth flags are to have staff in honor of Charlie Kirk. This statement coming out says today, in accordance with the United States Flag Code and the President's proclamation, Governor Josh Shapiro ordered United States and Commonwealth flags on all Commonwealth facilities, public buildings, and grounds across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to fly at half-staff as a mark of respect for the memory of Charlie Kirk. The flag shall remain lowered until sunset on Sunday, September 14th, 2025. All Pennsylvanians are invited to participate in this tribute. Now here, let me put a disclaimer, because we common sense is not common. I do not mourn the death of any person. I don't celebrate the death of people. I don't hope for the death of people. I hope for the death of their very toxic, problematic ideals. But I don't celebrate the death of people. I don't celebrate their downfall in life in a death way, right? Let me be very transparent about that. However, I do not necessarily mourn everyone's death. There's a difference. There's a difference between respect and reverence. There's a difference between celebrating and mourning. Charlie Kirk was 31 years old. He lived a very problematic life that threatened to endanger the lives of many different people who did not look like him, who did not believe like him, who did not exist in the universe to which he did. And for those beliefs and those views, ideals that he had sought to harm the lives of people who look like myself, Black men, queer individuals, those who have transgender relatives, women, right? Women who were victims of assault and abuse. He had no empathy for those people under those circumstances. I don't have to go down his greatest misses. I don't have to go down every single problematic thing he said. Even on the issue of gun violence, before his actual untimely death, this was reported by the Associated Press. I am coming with the facts. I always tell people that you will be remembered by the life that you live and the impact that you live on people, which is why people tell people to live a purposeful life, a respectful life, because how you live your life and the impact that you lead on people should be a reflection of how they will reflect on you in your passing. The Associated Press reported this, that Kirk was speaking at a debate hosted by his nonprofit political organization. I believe this is Turning Point. Immediately before the shooting, Kirk was taking questions for an audience member about mass shootings and gun violence. The person asked, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?" An audience member asked. Kirk responded, "Too many." The questioner followed up, "Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? He responds back, "Counting or not counting gang violence?" Then a single shot rang out. That was from the Associated Press. So even up until his untimely death, he was still paneling transgender rhetoric. He was still pushing problematic stereotypes. And this was during an event on a college campus in Utah, which continues to be another example of violence against political figures in America. People are trying to call this political violence. I want to be very clear that Charlie Kirk, at 31 years old, was not a politician. This is another act of actual gun violence that takes place. And people are saying that, he played a central role in organizing young voters on behalf of President Donald Trump. This is true. He was a strong, close ally to the current president, Donald Trump. Many people are coming out to mourn him. Many people are coming out to do this. And let me be very clear that this was only a few months ago that a Democratic Minnesota lawmaker and her husband were assassinated, okay? This was a lawmaker, were assassinated by a man who said his actions were motivated by his views about COVID-19 vaccine mandates. This is also not too long ago when a man had set fire to Governor Shapiro's in his, mansion, the governor's mansion, when he and his family was asleep. So this is a pattern. Let's not forget what happened in 2011 when former Representative Gabby Giffords, who was a Democrat, was shot in the head. There was also Republican lawmakers who were shot while practicing baseball in 2017. There was also, Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked. And then, of course, Trump last year was shot in the ear while campaigning in Butler, Pennsylvania, before another attempt was on his life a few months later near a golf course. So there's a lot of questions and concerns. But I want to get back to some basics real quick. The suspect's motivations are not immediately known. We still do not know what the motivation is. We don't know who did it. We don't know why. Just want to say that because, when, and this is just the standard, right, in journalism, and it's important to make sure that before we jump the gun and label something as something, we want to be very transparent and clear that we don't know the motivations of the gunman because we don't know who the gunman is as of the recording of this podcast, nor do we know this. So it's interesting because when we have seen situations where there's been extrajudicial killings of young Black people by law enforcement, and people, when activists will say that there might have been some racial bias or there could be something, people say, we don't know all the facts. Let's not jump to conclusions. I find it very interesting. A double standard is that people are already calling this political violence. People are already labeling this as something that's divisive within political parties. We don't know if the person who shot, I remember when the incident happened with Trump, the individual was a registered Republican. There's been situations also with other types of actions where it wasn't some far extreme leftist. It wasn't a Black person who did the shooting. This was a white person who did. It was a white man who came from a certain background. It wasn't some leftist of color or whatnot. So it's very interesting that there's a lot of people jumping to conclusions, Democrats and Republicans alike. Now, Republicans, we can understand. They always jump to conclusions. Nancy Mace, who's in Congress, recently said that it's the Democrats' fault. It's the Democrats need to own this. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, What? What? What's going on? But this is a lot. This is a lot. But this is the performance, right? This is the political performance. The New York Times just put out an editorial. The editorial board put out a piece. Everyone is jumping up. Liberals are jumping up. And they put out a piece recently that just came out like not too long ago. And they wrote that, there's a lot of concerns that people were sharing, saying that America mourns Charlie Kirk. Which America mourns Charlie Kirk? Which America? Which America mourns Charlie Kirk? A lot of, elected officials and governors, including Governor Wes Moore and others, are putting out statements, calling it political violence, condemning the tragedy, acknowledging that in accordance to the president's proclamation, that they have ordered that all flags in state facilities be lowered to have staff. Now I'm going to read what Governor Moore's statement is on this. I'm going to read it just so you can compare and contrast a tale of two governors. Governor Moore's statement following the death of Charlie Kirk, not honoring Charlie Kirk, not any of that rhetoric. Specifically, the statement says, Annapolis, Maryland. Governor Wes Moore today released the following statement regarding the death of Charlie Kirk in Utah. Today, Maryland, the country, and the world saw yet another act of heinous political violence on American soil. We pray for Charlie Kirk's family and loved ones. We stand together in praying both for everyone touched by this killing and for the healing of our human spirit. Political violence is unacceptable. We will not tolerate it, not now, not ever. The future of democracy depends on our ability to resolve political differences peacefully and not violently. Moreover, our state and country are defined not by our darkest moments, but by how we work together to spread light in that darkness. In the wake of today's events, we share a collective responsibility both to condemn this tragedy in the strongest possible terms and be bold in our commitment to greater unity and peace. In accordance with the president's proclamation earlier today and in compliance with the law, I have ordered that all flags on state facilities be lowered to have staff. Now, that is the end of the statement. Do you notice that it's very different from Shapiro's camp? That notice that he does not say he's in honor of Charlie Kirk. He clarifies that he has to do this in compliance with the law. So he's telling us in many ways, and this is my communication management hat coming on, but it's very clear what Governor Moore makes very clear in his statement. He's not praising him. He's not saying in his memory. It is a very more focused on violence in general. He's not spending time trying to say in honor of Charlie Kirk. He doesn't say any of that. He gives his prayer for the family and loved ones, but he does not at all give any reverence or acknowledgement to Kirk as the individual or the person. He doesn't even try to commemorate him in any way. And even when declaring his proclamation, he says he has to do it in accordance to the law, which is important. So the half-mast is the mathing of it all, and the massing of the flags is because when it's a proclamation from the United States president, that pretty much everyone has to do it. But the way in which you announce that and how you convey that, right, is very different than the way that Shapiro does. Shapiro, in my opinion, is doing a capitulation. And it's a mess because when we see this country and we see the current state that we're in, there's a big difference here. And so this statement says Governor Shapiro orders U.S. Commonwealth flags to have staff in honor of Charlie Kirk. That's the headline. Who was the communications director? Because first of all, Shapiro orders it, or are you being told to do it? You didn't order it. You're being told to do it. You have to do it. Why are you acting like you're doing it? Now, the statement he does at the beginning says, today, in accordance with the United States flag code and the president's proclamation, Governor Josh Shapiro ordered. Why not just simply say a statement of Kirk? I'm just thinking about the comms rhetoric here. You're acting in honor of Charlie Kirk. In honor? Why even frame it in that way? and then put as a mark of respect for the memory of Charlie Kirk. Again, choices in messaging, choicing in rhetoric, choices in what the law says. So we walk away, if you're a Marylander, you will know that basically this has to happen, that this is something by law. And basically, in many ways, if you listen to the difference in Governor Westmore's statement, no use of the word honor, nothing in his memory. There's a very difference in messaging. It's obvious that Governor Moore has to do this because he has to follow the law. It's not going to break the law, not going to go to jail, but that's a black man right there. That's a man who is clearly not trying to honor a former white supremacist. And to be in a position as his, unfortunately, to serve in this position, he has to abide by federal law. But he's not doing anything else. He's not going to put anything extra out. He's not going to do any more than what he said. Governor Shapiro, a very different story. This is a statement that he posted earlier today. He says, political violence has no place in our country. We must speak with moral clarity. Irony. The attack on Charlie Kirk is horrifying, and this growing type of unconscionable violence cannot be allowed in our society. That was 6 hours ago. Listen, people want to be the president of the United States. People are thirsting to try to get to the White House by all the means in which they do and how they communicate their messaging, how it lands and how it's received. I don't know who's on his comms team, but, listen. Choices. Words matter. Words matter. These are choices, and words matter. So, other things that have been taking place with this is that I've seen a lot of different people on social media who have, look, Republicans they're mourning. They lost their dog. You know what I'm saying? They lost their dog. That's their road dog. Tommy Lauren and them. Look, I am not at all shocked. I am not at all, here's what I will say. Democrats, liberals, progressives, everybody on whatever the side, the left, whatever spectrum you are on. I noticed that y'all never show up for our fallen or those who are innocent kids. You don't stop and acknowledge in the same way with the same fervor. Even when there are Democrats or liberals who are imperfect, but are advocates and all their complexities. See, Republicans in the far right, when they people go down, whether they was the biggest bigot, a criminal, indicted, whatever they are, when their people fall short of grace or pass away or whatever you want to name it, there is a level of automatic praise, unification. I don't know if there's ever really been a time, even when Biden was president, where he stopped everything in this same way for somebody. Like Charlie Kirk is a 31-year-old podcaster for Trump. Trump stopped everything to make the whole country acknowledge this. There's been several people that's been shot and killed over the years on the left. And I don't ever recall this level of, mourning and instant everything shuts down to make the country have to deal and reckon with it. Not in this era, maybe for MLK back in the 60s, but in this era, not the same level. We done seen it happen just in Minnesota. Did this president, did he stop anything with a lawmaker? Why? Because that person was a Democrat. But Democrats are always trying to take this imaginary high road for people who literally do not want to see us exist, push rhetoric and messaging that degrade and belittle and target us. It baffles me. If something like this was to happen to Mondani, we don't even have to wonder what that response would be. And I'm not saying an eye for an eye. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we will always play second fiddle. And I shouldn't even say we, because I don't even include myself in this, because this is another train, and I'm not on this train. So I'm not going to say we. I'll say they. Whoever these liberals that claim that they're standing up for truth and justice but capitulate, because I'm not in this. No. I'm not going to say we. It's no we. No. It's not we. It's not us, for those listening to this episode. But them in our sphere that are claiming they're on this right side of the issue find themselves always feeling like they gotta perform, because it is a performance. Because let's be real, the left doesn't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying people are celebrating his death. I'm not saying that. Because no one over here, where I'm at with it is, there might be some. Like some were probably celebrating the death of those innocent individuals. Like some are celebrating the death of innocent Palestinian children dying in Gaza. I mean, celebrating death across the... Let's not act like people don't. I don't. I don't celebrate the death of anybody. However, I am often told, as a black man, as a queer person, to make responsible decisions, to choose the crowds I'm in. This is a man who has made careless remarks about gun violence, and said pretty much in so many different ways that some people, that's the price you pay for liberty in America. That's what Charlie Kirk said when it came to gun violence. So is this the price? Was it worth it? Is this the price that we have to pay for liberty? I mean, clearly no one wants to talk about gun control. And interesting enough, I don't know if the president is going to take gun control seriously, because let's be clear, he was a victim of gun violence last year. Did we see any changing legislation on gun violence? So both sides talk all this about this is not acceptable. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. And what's frustrating is that there was a school shooting that also happened a couple of weeks ago. Another one happened at a school in another area, not too far from Utah, today. This man, if he was still living, would have said that that was the price that we pay for liberty in America. Decisions, choices, right? We're told all the time that young black man should have wore that hoodie. He should have had his hands out his pockets. There's no level of nuance, no level of empathy. There's no level of concern. This man, Charlie Kirk, justified in so many ways the death of George Floyd. No sense of concern, no empathy, no declaration against X, Y, and Z. No. And so there are some people today, tonight, tomorrow, that will be saying the same thing. That when you use this violent rhetoric, this divisive rhetoric, when you play into this extremism, These are the consequences. I mean, that's what, you know, I mean, choices. And you'll say, well, where's the empathy in that? But the truth of the matter is there's no empathy. But I also wrestle with the reality of I'm not mourning a white supremacist. I'm not. I wouldn't expect anybody to mourn the death of an anti-Semite or a neo-Nazi. I wouldn't want anyone to mourn the death of a white nationalist. An honor? Question mark. I wouldn't want anyone to do that. I would never ask for a victim of sexual assault, rape, to mourn the death of her abuser. I will never mourn the passing of an oppressor. I won't. And those who choose to voluntarily for clout, there's a special place in hell for you. And I say that fully. There's a special place in hell for people who mourn the death of oppressors. For clout. See, let me explain something to you. Not mourning doesn't mean I'm celebrating, because we're not going to put words in people's mouth. Not mourning, because mourning means something. Words matter. And I think that's the problem. I'm not giving thoughts and prayers. Let me explain what thoughts and prayers means, right? When you have people in your thoughts, that means you have concern and you're thinking about them. And they're on your mind in a way of consideration. Prayers means that you are going to take the time to pray for them with your faith, with your universe. Somebody who seeks to harm you, seeks for the oppression of people close to you, and the total demolishment of your community. And on my understanding, to pray for them in such a way is to suggest and to want them to be healthy and well to do fucking what? Thoughts and prayers for the recovery of any person that is seeking harm to you would arguably be suicide. It's like you're in a war with someone who's seeking to kill you. And you're in that battle. And you're doing everything you can to avoid them, to protect yourself. Who's in that battle saying, I hope that they can breathe and that they can be good so they can get the strength to stand another day and do what? Do what? To get the strength and muster to kill you, to harm you, to oppress you? Like, what are you asking for in those prayers and those thoughts? So is that really what it is? Or is it a different word? I hope that Charlie Kirk found peace with himself and with whoever his creator is, if we have the same one. before he gave his last breath. And if he did not, it is what it is. I hope that any oppressor who desires or seeks the detriment and the harm of women, of Black and brown people, of innocent people, of queer people, of poor people, of transgender people, of all, that anybody, any bigot that seeks that they find peace within themselves before they cross over. And that's what I hope. For all of the ones still living, find peace within yourself. And what that peace within yourself looks like is you dissolving the bigotry, the hatred, the disgust that you put out in this universe that karmically comes back to you. It reminds me of an obituary that I had to, there was a man, and you all probably know this man, actually. He's passed away. And, he was always talking about being a high value man. And everybody talked about this man, Kevin Samuels. And Kevin Samuels, for those who remember this man, he was a Black man who was a controversial relationship YouTuber, and he called himself an image consultant. He had a history of being misogynistic and anti-Black and very harsh and sexist. And that's how he made his career. And he talked about plus size women and health and their looks and their attraction. And he died in the presence of, I think, a sex worker. And it was from hypertension and basically a situation that involved poor health and something around a heart attack, pretty much a heart disease. It was very sudden. And it was in the presence of a woman that could have been a sex worker of some sort, speculated. But for all the things he said, it was very problematic, homophobic, all the things. And so when it was his obituary in the New York Times, they wrote a write-up about him as he passed, and they asked me to talk about him, and I did. I went viral, actually, and I spoke about his very misogynistic history. I did not mourn his death. I did not say, oh, we miss him. I did not. And in further conversation with the reporter, I don't know if they put this in, but I basically said, I hope before that heart attack, he had came to peace with himself and understanding about how wrong his actions were. And I hope he found peace with his maker. Bless his heart. That's my thoughts for Charlie Kirk. I don't celebrate his death, but I have the mindset that many people say, right, is that how you live your life is how you live your legacy, and that's how your legacy will be. I live a life that I hope is a life where people will know me as being outspoken and being a truth teller. And, people will say I had my clashes. I ruffle feathers. Sure. But I also know that I did a lot of good in the world. I would argue that I did good by people. And that's the kind of life I'm living now, so that my legacy will reflect that. My message to a lot of people is live the life that you want your legacy to be. If you profit off of bigotry, if you profit off of gun violence, if you profit off of misinformation, if you profit off of transphobia, if you profit off of misogyny and denying women the right of choice, if that's how you live your life. See, the problem is that the narrative right now is, oh, he just simply had different political beliefs. Oh, it wasn't just a difference of political beliefs. He had millions of followers. He traveled around the country spreading rhetoric that endangered people's lives. There's nothing to honor there for myself. See, I'm not going to celebrate your death, but I'm also not going to celebrate your life. And I think that's the problem with certain liberals and Democrats and these people performing, is that sometimes just shutting the fuck up is very simple. You don't actually have to say anything. Sometimes you can just say the bare minimum, and that's okay. Maybe that's what some of y'all need to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump just is very like, look, he just be like, oh, that's very unfortunate that person passed. That's it. You all want to sit up and put graphics. You all want to roll out the red carpet. And I get the logic you think. I see a lot of these some of these progressive, influencers. Mind you, a lot of the ones doing this are not black. But we're reminded very much so how you all will flip the script to perform. Oh, it's a bad day in America when anyone dies from gun violence. Is it? Is it? I mean, anybody? I don't know if it's a very tragic, sad day in America when a white supremacist, white nationalist, bigot is no longer bigoting and white supremacy. I mean, you missed them, Annie Wu. I mean, you missed him, Josh. I mean, in his honor, you said you more than that. It's interesting that people can find the nuance in mourning a white supremacist than the nuance in the death of unarmed black people that's being killed by law enforcement. Like, I don't see this level of nuance and complex conversations in this country when we see innocent people getting killed. It's interesting. People say, well, wasn't Charlie Kirk innocent? What do y'all say to black folks and other folks that get killed? We don't know all the facts. We don't know everything. Hold on, people. Don't jump to conclusions. We don't know the facts. We don't. We don't know. We don't know who the gunman is. Justice must be served. Law and order, they say. I can only imagine that the framing of this, that whoever did this, Trump is going to come for him and, they'll focus on this than what's going on in D.C., looking for, undocumented or innocent families and separating families. Maybe this is a priority. We're not going to worry about Jeffrey Epstein. Let's put that away, right? Let's focus on this. This is the thing that now everybody's got to focus on because this is important. Now, I wonder, right, will this situation, because they're going to make him a martyr, right, will this lead to a conversation about gun control? Will we finally have the conversation on gun control? I don't think so. But I hope maybe, this is a moment to unite the country. I mean, or is this just not that serious? Or is it that this is opportunity for mudslinging? So now the Republicans and conservatives act like they're, victims and innocent, and now we focus on them and their concerns and do the both sides bullshit? Is that what we're going to do, the both sides stuff? I don't know. This culture of political standum, I talked about it recently in my last podcast episode, but this political standum, right? We're in political standum where there's extremes. And now we're seeing an increase in violence in this way over the standum of politics. It's a very interesting phenomenon, political stand culture. Yeah. Divided we stand, y'all. Divided we stand. Interesting times that we're in. Well, there'll probably be more details from this case. We'll be following here on this podcast. I just realized that I didn't want to take up my next episode that drops next Monday and talk about this and give it all this because we'll put it as a special edition. So there's a fun fact. I do have a Charlie Kirk story briefly. We had there was a situation where actually people that there was a point in time where I think they were trying to put there was a conversation about putting us together against each other on Oxford Union on council culture. He ended up going on the Oxford Union later on this year, recently actually. And he was actually on Oxford Union talking against DEI, go figure. And it didn't happen. It did not happen, actually. I ended up doing it with who did I do it with? I did it with yeah, he did oh yes. So he a month ago, Charlie Kirk went on the Oxford Union in England and he did a debate. And one of the things he spoke about was DEI as a cancer must be ripped out. That was a quote from Charlie Kirk at Oxford Union. So that's, I mean, I'm not mourning that, y'all. I'm just not mourning that. I'm not. I'm not mourning that personally. If that's what you want to do, you know, you can. You know, he went on Oxford Union a while back and said men should get married and have children to be happy. These are his views. I mean, he's entitled to his views. I'm not saying no one should die for having their views. I'm just putting some things in perspective. Decisions, choices. That's all I'm going to say. Decisions, choices. I was on Dave Rubin. That's who the man was. Rubin is that person. And that was the conservative that ended up going on. But I think initially there was some talks about potentially, doing this. Recently, there's other people that's putting out statements. And I think a lot of people are just trying to censor themselves in a weird way. I think jumping on bandwagons, trying to look like a certain type of stature, the clout chasing. Because I think what the thirst is, and let me be very clear about what's happening here, y'all, and what you're going to see a lot of people do. They're going to try to capitalize off of this situation by acting like, they are, this voice of reasoning. They're going to present themselves like they are an upstanding person. The Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. You're going to see, I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a lot of these liberals and progressive types that they're already doing it. They're already doing it on social media. They're going to pretend that they are the voice of reason, that they are all of that. And they're going to censor themselves in this very weird way. And they're going to try to do the whole, y'all, this is going too far. And it's like, did it take a guy like, why did the white nationalists have to be, killed for you all to step up and say this? Why is it that you have to do this much capitulation to white supremacy in this way in order to get your point across? Do you really believe what you're saying, or are you trying to perform right now? And so the performance is about to start, y'all. And we're seeing people already do it, where they're posting these things, trying to look like, okay, I'm on both sides of it. Okay. Come on. Like what? Like what is going on? So yeah. Like even the fact that Shapiro, I'm looking at this statement, says all Pennsylvanians are invited to participate in this tribute. What? Now Philadelphia is saying, what? Well, maybe Northeast is maybe saying something, or South is. West Philadelphia is like, what? But all I'm saying, all these city council members, shut up. Don't do it. Kenyatta Johnson, shut up. Don't do it. Sherelle Parker might try it because she got to kiss the ring to... I'm going to tell y'all right now, if Philadelphia City Council do a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, they lucky I'm not hosting that show anymore because I will get up. I would have got up and left. I'm not going to be there. I just hope they don't do a moment of silence. But I don't put anything past Kenyatta Johnson City Council at this point because they just are performing it. Listen, the mayor might put out a statement, maybe. But if she do, you got all this to say about gun violence in Utah, but you better say something about these gun violence victims in Philly. What you doing about that stuff going on in our own backyard? Y'all better watch out because this is the man who is, is Trump going to bring the National Guard to Utah? Is he going to bring the National Guard over there and stop that mayhem and that violence? Oh, okay. I'm just saying, just pay attention to what people are going to do. What our Philly politicians are going to do. What we're going to see in these other major cities. Because let me tell you something. I get governors. I understand. Because you are governor of the United States. I get it. But nobody's asking for all these other random ass offices and spaces. Listen, you're not that important. Your office is not that important. No one's asking for the council president to say anything. Nobody's asking. Nobody wants to hear from the council president of Philadelphia's office or city council's office about Charlie Kirk. Don't say shit about it. Nobody's asking you to. Please shut up. Please don't say anything. But they want that national attention, clout chasers. Let me see. Let me look. Because they run out. Listen, Fast and the Speeding Bullet go out. So far, the council president hasn't said anything so far. But I will tell people right now, listen, all them, it's just random people putting out little statements. People don't even need to put out a statement. This guy named Isaiah Martin, allegedly he might be running for Congress, put out a statement just now. It is with deep sadness that we acknowledge the passing of Charlie Kirk at only 31 years old. Regardless of our political differences, the loss of a young life is always a tragedy, and my heart goes out to his family and loved ones in this time of grief. What? You're a black young gay millennial. Who asked you to put this statement? You're not even elected official. Who asked you to do this? Oh, because you're thirsty. You're about to run for Congress. So now you over here trying to play these games? Disgusting. Do you feel this way? Listen, a lot of people are being disingenuous. A lot of people are being fake. That's just fake. That's fake. Why even say anything? Nobody asked you. Nobody wants to hear this. So this is a statement from Candace Benbow. Well, I don't think her name is Benbow. Maybe it is. She said this: seeing black men mourn the loss of someone who was literally in the middle of saying they are the most violent group of people when he was shot has been hard. Seeing black women mourn the loss of someone who called State Rep Sheila Lee dumb, and black women like Joy Ann Reid, Michelle Obama, and Ketanji Jackson Brown lack brain processing power and stole positions from qualified white people has been hard. It has been hard. It has been hard. This came from Preston Mitchum, my frat brother. I really want to be calm right now, but I'm hearing more about why I don't trust many people and their quote unquote compassion. Charlie Kirk is the reason why I was doxxed in 2018. He and Turning Point USA put me on a professor watch list for quote-unquote progressive views. He's the reason for me previously receiving death threats. He's the reason the police had to call me and ask if I needed an escort to class when I taught at Georgetown University Law Center. If you are a part of a marginalized community, he did not care about you, he did not mourn for you, and he very much believed you didn't deserve equal treatment. For those of us who had personal experience with him and received his direct attacks, do not tell us how to feel. He died in the world he wanted. You'll never understand. Like I said before, you are the legacy. You live the life of your legacy. What you want your legacy to be is how you live your life today. Period. Period. There are people messaging Shapiro, said it's a travesty that you are putting a flag at half-mast for a white supremacist demagogue. Why not for the state senator murdered? Why not for every child killed in a shooting at a school? I'm so incredibly disgusted and disappointing you, Governor Shapiro. That is people sending that to him. People are upset, as they should. We're in precarious times. One thing you know about me and what I can tell you about myself as someone who's in the public eye is that one thing you can trust with Ernestly speaking, what I do, I am not going to capitulate under any circumstances. I will not take a job or position that puts me in a position that have to compromise my views in such a way. Let me be very clear. Myself, this show does not celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk. We do not celebrate his passing. We do not celebrate the killing. We do not celebrate the killer. We don't do any of that here. But we're also not mourning the death either. But let's also be very clear. Not celebrating does not mean not that means not mourning does not mean celebrating. And not celebrating means, well, there you have it. Those are my thoughts. That's all I know. I imagine that in the next couple of hours, within the next 24 hours and whatnot, more information and more things will come. I will update you all on that on my next podcast episode, which will drop on Monday at midnight, as always. So, be well out there. Guard your peace. Unfollow people. You see people that's doing some shit you ain't banging with? Protect your peace. Don't get out here in these comments and argue and debate people. There were people in my DMs. Certain people were saying, I can't believe that, we got both sides. I just blocked y'all. I'm not going to argue with people. I'm not going to argue with people. At this point, if you're mad at me for not publicly giving thoughts and prayers to a white supremacist, I don't know. We're not the same. I don't need your follow. I don't need your support. Because what that tells me is you must not be on the same message, or you must be privileged enough to be able to navigate this. I can't afford to sit up and, one, save my life, protect myself, advocate for my community against white supremacy, and then hold space for empathy and emotions for the very oppressors and white supremacists don't give a fuck about me and want to target me all the time. I don't have enough capacity for that. I don't have the capacity for that. I'm barely got the capacity for all the multiple communities I belong to. I don't have the capacity for that. I don't. I don't have the capacity in my mind, in my body, and in my spirit to have space for the thoughts and prayers and considerations of an oppressor, while also having the capacity for my mental, emotional, and physical safety in addition to those of people I'm in community with. I don't have that. I don't have enough capacity for that. Must be white, must be nice to be able to have the privilege to have enough empathy and space and capacity for white supremacist oppressors. Because that's right, you have that capacity emotionally and physically because you don't have to deal with the shit that is off of the officer. Did you hear what my frat brother Preston Mitchum just said? Charlie Kirk's behavior led to him, doxed him, put a target on his back. Does this man have the space right now? Do we ask victims of sexual assault and abuse, torture? Do we ask those people when their oppressor or abuser gets killed to make space to give them thoughts? Do we ask those people that? We don't. So don't ask me, and don't try to debate any other person. The America that I live in, the America that I have to live in as a black person, as a queer person, yeah. 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 No. So that is all for now. Take care of yourself, protect your peace, and as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.